Dissidents in my writing have expressed concern about the cost of living. Budget 2025 is full of great initiatives that will empower them. And Canadians across
a massive inflationary deficit, while Canadians can't even afford a case of beer.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that, Mr.
It's too bad that that minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday. Board and to take all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about you sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Canada know that this government has their back. It will continue. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest and telling
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Out of control spending on consultants. Last year alone, over $20 billion on well-connected Liberal insiders getting contracts. And this year, I think the number said that it's going to go as high as $25 billion. Why won't they put Canadians first? Instead of asking young people to make sacrifices, why won't they cut out their well-connected friends, put Canadians first, and deliver a budget that Canadians can actually afford?
Madam Speaker, it's impressive the Liberals are actually recognizing Christmas. Canadians are being asked to pull the wagon through the mud while Liberal cronies ride comfortably on top. The government isn't worried about families lining up at food banks. They're too busy lining the pockets of insiders. They're not bothered with cutting home prices. They're too focused on cutting checks to bumbling bureaucrats. They don't care about rising debt and inflationary deficits so long as the money keeps flowing to the Liberal elites. When will this Prime Minister stop using tax dollars?
The answer is clear, Mr. Speaker. We will take no lessons from the Conservative.
Spending. This is how we build the strongest economy in the G7. Tomorrow's budget will empower Canadians because this is your country. And we decide what comes next.
Minister talks like the government's money belongs to him, and they call these taxes imaginary. They aren't imaginary when you're staring at your own credit card bill. The government's job is to listen to Canadians, not lecture them or gaslight them or threaten an election to distract them from the failures. Instead of trying to cause a costly election on a costly budget, why not an affordable budget for an affordable life?
lie, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals have sacrificed the future of young Canadians. The deficit is a massive $80 billion this year. More inflation, higher costs. The Prime Minister promised he would spend less and again broke his promise and is spending more. He's forcing young Canadians to sacrifice more so he can spend more. After 10 years of this Liberal government, housing costs have doubled. Food bank usage has doubled. Youth employment is the lowest it's been in 25 years. The cost on the interest of this government's debt is more than GST revenues or what goes to provinces in healthcare transfers. And today, the finance minister had a choice to make. Food prices could have came down. They could have been cheaper, but again, he refused to do this. The Liberals kept in place their industrial carbon tax, their food packaging tax, the clean fuel standard, and added $18 billion of inflationary fuel to the fire. Why did the finance minister leave in place Liberal hidden food taxes and force higher food costs on single mothers, seniors, and young Canadians?
On this side of the House, the answer is clear, Mr. Speaker. We will take no lessons from the Conservative. Mr. Speaker, we made a clear choice. We chose Canadian, Mr. Speaker. That is the thing. I know the budget has many pages. Maybe my colleague missed a chapter, Mr. Speaker. But let me help him because we have a bit of time. Mr. Speaker, we made the choice to invest in Canadians. We made the choice to protect and build our communities. We made the choice to invest in our young people. We made the choice to invest in our workers. We made the choice to invest in housing. We made the choice to invest in infrastructure. We made the choice to invest in productivity and competitiveness. We made the choice to invest in our defense, Mr. Speaker. And I hope that they will see and their concern will be watching. Will they make the choice to invest in Canadians as well? On this side of the House, the answer is clear, Mr. Speaker. We will take no lessons from the Conservative, but we'll take lessons from history.
Persists and doubles down on these fake imaginary taxes.
That's right. He says it's imaginary, but it's in his budget.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the leader persists and doubles down on these fake imaginary taxes that exist only in his head and on the talking points that he hands out. What I will tell you is this is a budget where conservative-minded voters, people who think of voting conservative in elections, you know what they like about it? They like the hope. They like the ambition. They like the economic growth. They like bringing this country together from coast to coast to invest in our potential, to invest in our young people, and to grow this country to be the best in the G7, Mr. Speaker. That's what they like.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he says it's imaginary, but it's in his budget. Does that mean the budget is a fictional document? Here it is on page 106, strengthening the industrial
The honourable member may continue now that the prop has been put away.
Mr. Speaker, they say their budget is a prop and its contents are imaginary. We're in real trouble today. Homes take steel, they take aluminum, they take concrete and cement and glass. The industrial carbon tax drives all those things up with our youth unable to afford homes. Why don't they get rid of this tax so that we can bring down the cost of housing?
Residents in my riding have expressed concern about the cost of living. Budget 2025.
Hey, welcome. Make sure we got our sound levels right. Good to go. Outstanding. Welcome to the NAP, the no answer period, where we cover the question period, prefaced by a review of the far left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it. The NAP precedes question period by 45 minutes, and we will cover the lower house until the government decides to stop showing up. We also keep score, described in the description below. We are streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and CommieTube. I'd like to thank my followers and subscribers for doing so. And if you're new, please like, thumbs up, follow, share, subscribe. Most of all, the chat is up, so please feel free to ask anything. Comments drive the algorithm when I'm not driving it down with my forbidden words. And our chat is up on all 3 platforms, if Rumble Studio works properly. So we will go straight to what we've been covering first every single time. I just want to make sure that we don't go into some weird echo version here. Let's put on here. There we go. That. All right. Okay, so you must have all heard the horrible decision yesterday. We mentioned the courts had decided against the ostrich farm, and I think that these pictures here pretty well describe exactly how they feel and how anyone who knows what's going on here probably feels personally. The look of anguish, the sounds of gunshots overnight, mass killing and culling that is going on. Well, let's shut this down here and we will move to the next piece. Again, if you go to Rebel News, you can catch these stories here. Live shooting sounds are occurring in the ostrich pen. And if you go over to Creighton's Right, continuing ongoing stories and discussions. International Reactions, the Redacted show as well. They've been continuing to cover this story. They have Creighton on at least once a week. They've been having him on more often to cover that particular story. And how has our minister reacted to this? Well, in Canada, we are being ruled by a death cult. A literal death cult. I've gone over the figures before. 76,000 plus people have unalived waiting for health care because the lists are too long because they've destroyed health care. We know that there's 50,000, maybe 60,000 plus overdoses because of their harm reduction, right? Because they don't care about life. They only care about unaliving people. They are a death cult. Right? We know 50,000 plus people MAID, medical assistance in dying. And we know that they want to increase that to even more people, right? They just want to make killing people normalized. Right? They think, oh, well, you know, now that you're useless to society, maybe it's just easier if you roll over and die. Here, actually, here's a shovel. Why don't you dig your own hole and then stand in front of it and we'll put a round in your head and then just bury you. Right? Because this is where we're headed with these communists. And how do we know this? Look at their attitude. They lie about absolutely everything. And they're happy about death. This guy is actually pleased about the death and the mayhem that he has caused. Just disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. These people, and the people who support them as well. I've said it often enough. If you support liberals, you are supporting a death cult. I'm sorry, the numbers don't lie. They killed over 250,000 Canadians with their policies. Once you start adding all the numbers up, that last little gap might be the numbers they won't let us know about all the people that were unalive by the vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine, right? Vaccine Injury Support Program, right? That's not working. People need to be held to account. These are evil, evil people. Let's listen to this minister, shall we?
Supreme Court has decided not to hear the death of the ostrich cases. Mr. Justice, do you have any thoughts about the case not proceeding to the Supreme Court and whether the ostriches should end their lives?
Look, we obviously are pleased to see the decision of the Supreme Court. It's important that the Minister of Agriculture and CFIA are able to protect the health of the general Canadian public and of the food that we consume.
the health of the general Canadian public and protect our food. That's a complete lie. The ostrich farm is nowhere near food farms. The ostriches were not being cultivated for food. There was no reason for it whatsoever. There was no protection of Canadians in this decision whatsoever. Lying, evil, mass murdering party of death. That's who the Liberals are. Willy-nilly, oh, we'll just kill this, kill that, we don't care. And this is only the one story that's actually gotten exposure, right? Because think of all the other farms the CFIA have just arbitrarily gone on and just mass slaughtered all the animals and then just gave it over to the farmers to deal with. The only reason they're doing it here is because all eyes are on them. Because otherwise, if this hadn't had the exposure that it had, they wouldn't have needed to bring in a platoon of RCMP. They wouldn't need to spend $100,000 a day renting all this fencing, cordoning off the entire area, pick neighbors off their properties. No, they would have just stepped in if there was no visibility, nobody supporting this. They would just walked right in, slaughtered all the birds, and said, "It's up to you to get rid of the carcasses, and you may or may not get compensated. So bye-bye." Yeah, that's the government agency. This evil clown here, right? And he is an evil clown. He wants to get rid of the notwithstanding clause provinces, completely destroy provincial sovereignty, turning our confederation into a federation. There's a reason why Canada is a confederation. Provinces joined, they confederated together, each of them having their own provincial powers. This guy, because Liberals are control freaks, wants to centralize power even more. And they never answer. He'll just always give the same answer, and he'll lie with impunity. And the only times they get called on their lies is if somebody catches them in public and actually questions their lies. But you got to remember, who's this person questioning him right now? And are they ever going to do any follow-ups or any real questions on this at all? Will they? I don't know. I don't think so. Because public service announcement, Qualified Canadian Journalist Organization, 95% of the media that you consume that is mainstream is controlled by the Liberal government through this thing. It's a self-licking ice cream cone of misinformation and disinformation that in some cases just republishes government broadsheets that they publish on their own website saying, oh, these are all the amazing accomplishments and stuff we're going to do. CBC just grabs it and then republishes it. CTV pretty well just copies it as well. Because their journalists are getting close to 30 grand a year through this system. We're paying the journalists to lie to us. And again, public service reminder, journalists can lie to us with impunity without ever being fined because they changed the law in 2019. Which is pretty handy because if your political arm of propaganda is going to lie for you as the natural ruling party that the Liberals want to become, then you're going to need a propaganda outlet that can't be thrown in jail or questioned. And even if they are questioned, well, hey, there's no penalty. Just like being a politician that lies all the time. No penalty at all. No penalty, other than at the polling station. But by then, they've got complete control over the media. And they have enough people brainwashed to re-elect them ad infinitum while they slowly replace all of you. But furthermore, on the Liberals being a party of death, we just have to look at what's happening in Canada. So we have this, let me click on this story. This come up just before I came to the broadcast. And just, reinforces how much of a death culture we have here in Canada. Health Canada seizes ivermectin from BC woman claiming drug heals cancer. So again, CBC headline, right? Captured media claiming. Well, it's just not this woman who's claiming it. There are plenty of other people who are claiming this. But here's the thing. Inspectors from Health Canada recently seized ivermectin from the Kelowna, BC Wellness Clinic. Right? Ezra Healing was injured by Health Death Canada, she calls it, because they really are Death Canada. Unannounced, 2 inspectors interrupted a flow of healing day at my clinic space to steal all my ivermectin, mebendazole, and Fenben, and vitamin D, and ivermectin cream. And these are all legal substances, right? There's nothing wrong with this stuff whatsoever. Ivermectin was discovered and won a Nobel Peace Prize and was used on human beings for years before they even started using it on farm animals because it was so effective. And it's too dangerous. We gotta confiscate that stuff. And these other medicines have been proven to actually stimulate the immune system to help fight cancer. Along with all my healing education materials and $200 in the cash box. Stealing cash, imagine that. These healing supplies are used to help people with vaccine injuries and cancer. They had 2 RCMP escort them into my office to keep the peace. They stated they had a warrant to enter the property. I later checked with Constable Peters at the Kelowna RCMP department, and he clarified there was no warrant. And that Ezra healing is not a concern for the police, according to extensive background check of the team. This is a very sad day for Canadian healthcare. So they lied. Deaf Canada just went to the RCMP and says, we gotta stop these evil people who are curing people and helping people and making people feel like only we get to decide. Only Deaf Canada gets to decide if you get to live and when you get to die. So they came in, illegally seized their stuff, according to the story. According to the RCMP, reporting to the health clinic, saying, oh no, federal government just showed up and stole cash, stole $200 of cash from the cash box, illegally grabbed all their stuff, and the RCMP helped them. This is absolutely fucking nuts, Canada. But we're not done with nuttiness. Now, we played a bit of Kelsey yesterday. Let's play some more of her today, too. Because, I think we need more. I think we need more reminders.
Get right into one of my favorite subjects, the fall of the Canadian nation. It's kind of crazy, I hear you, but wild things are happening here, and you can thank Sean Fraser's new hate laws as a point of no return. Because our Canadian government is losing its damn mind and has unveiled yet another hate crime bill that they couldn't get past the last 2 times, so they're trying again. And this time it's being pushed by our Justice Minister, which sounds insane, by the way.
So if you don't know who Kelsey is, Kelsey went to war for Canada. Like me. We're both veterans, right? We are invested through our hard work, sometimes our own blood, definitely our sweat and tears, through years of service. I don't care if it was a shorter time like Kelsey or a longer time like me. We signed on a dotted line and we were ready to make that sacrifice. So we have a certain investment in this nation that politicians certainly don't and never will, and that most of the voters in Canada don't. So when you discount us as far-right lunatics, we actually put our lives on the line for this country. So that's why we are bloody pissed off that the cultural Marxists are slowly communizing Canada and using it as a means to end your lives, people. Canada, wake up. They are killing you. You are the carbon they want to replace. And all the while, this massive budget coming in that they're going to borrow $1 trillion. Well, I don't say $1 trillion. They want to attract $1 trillion. But hey, they're going to borrow under the scheme of by doing this and spending money on advertisement or whatever and helping their friends. It's going to bring in all this business because all these other businesses want to come to a loser country like Canada that kills its own citizens and has this net zero policy that steals all the wealth and lets any business that comes in actually not make any money because they have to hand it all over to Prime Minister Carney's GFANZ climate cartel that we are now looped into. Oh, by the way, the budget is going to pass, folks. It's going to pass because Canada needs to suffer more. You need to suffer more, Canada. In fact, you're going to suffer so much, you're going to wish you were dead.
Know who he is? Go give that guy a hard Google. On paper, he claims that he's protecting Canadians by outlawing intimidation and obstruction around schools, daycares, seniors' residence, and places of worship. And in practice, he's just telling you that if you stand up against him, well, you're going to prison. See, this risks criminalizing peaceful dissent, muzzling protests, and cementing Canadians' steady slide into authoritarianism. If you guys have seen Canada in the past little while, including the trucker protests, you will know that our government has lost its damn mind. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association has already sounded the alarm, and you know if they've gotten involved, it's a problem.
So we covered this on the earlier broadcast on Blazing Cat for Fridays. The government in Ontario, that's Doug Ford's government, his prosecutors, are still going after Chris and Tamara. No, they're not happy that some of the charges were dismissed. Oh, no. You need to be punished more. Yes, they're appealing. They're appealing because they have not been punished enough. It's a political vendetta. These are political prisoners. And this is another hallmark of totalitarianism and authoritarianism, right? When they used to say, march the guilty bastard in. It used to be a joke, but now it's the truth. Yes, we will tell you what your crime is, and then we'll send you away forever. Because they're just making it up on the fly, and they don't care. And as long as they have their jackboots enforcing their laws for them, physically they can manipulate people. But we've gotten to a point now where digitally, they just have to push a few levers, and you will be completely disconnected from society, and they will freeze your bank accounts. So they're not too worried about having their jackboots on their side right now. Right? Their biggest fear is that people will wake up and physically show up. Let's do a little bit more Kelsey.
The warning is blunt and true that this bill that he has been talking about is so broad, it could and will most definitely criminalize lawful protests. Well, unless you're a pro-Palestinian protester, that's for sure. The bill is terrifying, at least for me. It could mean upwards of 10 years in prison for holding a sign, chanting in front of a school board, or simply being disruptive. Laws already exist against harassment threats and mischief. I know this for several reasons.
Little history lesson. When the Nazis were asserting their control throughout certain areas in German towns, especially in apartment buildings, the little brown shirts would show up. Right? People in their apartments, they could hear the jackboots coming up the corridors and they go down the hallway, and they weren't knocking on their apartment, so they were happy. They knocked, but then they'd peek and they'd look, and he'd see the brown shirts, turn around and look at them, and goes, "Look in your room! It's for your safety." Yes, the cry of the totalitarian fascist. It's for your safety. And they will use this term of safety to take away all your rights, all the freedoms you thought you had. Not that we had too many to start with in Canada, but they're certainly solidifying which ones you're allowed to say in public. And they've got the political muscle within the system right now to do whatever the hell they want. Because there's no mechanisms to stop these politicians in Canada. There's no mechanisms. We just had a politician get fined for something that they did 5 years ago. It took them 5 bloody years to pay their pitiful little fine of $600. And even that was brought down from the original fine for whatever reason. It's like this guy who makes, what, 200 grand a year on an MP's pension? Pitiful little fine. What was it? He violated election laws in 2019. Violated election laws, which should just invalidate his seat whatsoever. But our political laws are so weak that you can just cheat and steal all your way to the political office and you pay a little fine and nothing ever happens, right? Or you can just put in policies that unalive hundreds of thousands of Canadians through bad policy and not be held responsible or accountable whatsoever. None whatsoever. If we don't take Canada back from these crazy cultural Marxists, there will be nothing but more death in Canada. Death. the culture of death. We are inundated with death and misery by these liberals. And I think a quarter of the population is pretty well realized it, seeing as they're skipping meals and or going to the food banks. Now, we know Chris D'Entremont decided to cross the floor. A red Tory, a progressive conservative, because there is no such thing as a progressive conservative. That's an oxymoron. You can't be progressive and conservative. A last little diseased piece of flesh left over from the progressive conservative days of the Mulrooney years, ideologically anyway. And of course, and why was he? Why did he go? Where did he cross the floor? Well, I know he was pissed off because he couldn't be speaker again, because Pierre told them, no, we need all our buns in the seats, because we need as many voices and votes to stop these clowns. Oh no, but for him, it wasn't about the party in this case. It wasn't about being part of the team, and it certainly wasn't about his constituents. So let's play his piece.
You just spoke of Mr. Poilievre and the direction he was going, but I'm just wondering whether the Conservative leadership style perhaps pushed you out of caucus.
Well, I think that's probably a part of it. I didn't find I was represented there. That my ideals of an Easterner, of a red Tory, I mean, quite honestly, of trying to find ways to find solutions and help your community rather than trying to oppose everything that's happening. And I think that's the opportunity that's being offered by Prime Minister Carney and the government caucus is to help find solutions at this critical time for Canada.
I know you just spoke of Mr. Poilievre.
So the solution at a critical time is not to keep racking up the credit cards. Right? When you're in debt past your eyeballs like the way Canada is, because we got no money coming in. Right? They ceased trying to get any new industries started in Canada. What few businesses are opening, they're not going to be open long. Because we're shedding more jobs than we are getting new ones. And if they think they're going to attract jobs with this GFANS climate scan scheme that they're going to enroll Canada in, well, all they have to look is where it has failed everywhere else. Germany's finally seeing the light. Other places in Europe as well, they're all kicking off from that. And of course, the United States says no more green scam. Stop the insanity. So you've got the largest trading partner on the block, of which we are right next door to, that these people are ideologically opposed to. They're saying, no, we can't deal with those evil Republicans. Because they have to make it about ideology. They have to make it about a victim and an oppressor. Just to ignore the fact that all these decisions are only going to make Canadians poorer and more miserable as the cash flow coming into the country comes to a trickle and halts. Because they pissed off our greatest trading partner. And because they are continually investing themselves into ideology and a financial system that the Americans are completely opposed to. I don't care. We're not even a consideration. We hardly do enough trade with them, except along the northern states, to really matter. These people are just insane. But you know what? There was signs ahead of time that his ideology was always truly progressive, perhaps even maybe on an international scale, if you know what I mean.
Question et commentaire, questions and comments. The honourable member for Oshawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I listened to my colleague's speech. I had a constituent that wanted me to ask a question about outside interference to our democracy. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum, and he bragged how his subversive WWF, World Economic Forum, has quoted infiltrated governments around the world. He said that his organization had penetrated more than half of Canada's cabinet. And I was wondering, in the interest of transparency, could the member please name which cabinet ministers are on board with the WEF's agenda? My concern is the deputy.
Order. I know he was. I know that the member was in a really good question there, but the audio is really bad, and the video is really bad as well. And I apologize. I don't know if the member. Okay, let's try again. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, that member is promoting open disinformation. That's not debate. We have to call out disinformation.
We'll get into debate again. The honourable member, questions and comments. The honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex. Question et commentaire, questions and comments. The honourable member for Oshawa.
So we know where Chris's true leanings lie. He demonstrated them right there, live on TV. He's a WEF puppet, World Economic Forum. That's why he crossed the floor. Bought and purchased. Now, we had this story here. Canada has become a haven for criminals. We have drug cartels, trafficking humans, trafficking drugs. We have the Chinese Communist Party buying land right, left, and center. We have them occupying foreign police stations in Canada. We have them threatening our politicians, and the Liberals doing nothing about it. Right now, of course, we've embraced China, even though they are a security risk, obviously, because they're communists. Now we've embraced them as partners. Next thing you know, they're probably going to start bringing in those explodey EVs that they produce over there, the ones that just decide to burst into flames and trap the occupants indoors, burning them to death. Yeah, certainly want those rolling into Canada. But it's not enough, right? Because we just opened our borders and said, hey, let all the criminals come, because it's part of the plan, right? It's part of the plan to completely destabilize and destroy the country completely so that you can bring in authoritarian rules and regulations and go, oh, look how bad things are. We have to do things, right? All the while, just ignoring the fact that they caused the problems. Well, here's another problem. We can get this going here. So
here's another Canadian immigration scam that's going to go unreported by the mainstream media. Last night, the OPP pulled over a vehicle going 147 kilometers an hour on the 407. And after the officer observed cannabis and the driver and passenger provided a fake name, they did a full strip search of the vehicle. And the police found instruments to produce identifications, dozens of fake driver's license, fake passports, fake PR cards, and a sum of stacked cash. So basically, these foreign invaders have become so emboldened with our lackluster legal system that they've created an Uber Eats business model for the delivery of fake identification to their foreign invader friends.
That's a good line. Uber Eats criminality. Just call them up and goes, hey, I need some crime. It's insane. Well, of course, now we know they completely decided that they were going to do nothing about those pedophiles that got released from the courts, right? Struck down there's, oh no, you can't treat our pedophiles so badly. And of course, as soon as it happened, everyone else was on that stink like a fly on shit. Except for the Liberals, of course, because they were like trapped. They were trapped in their own idiocy. Well, we can't go against our own progressive laws that let these pedophiles out. If we decide just to re-jail them after the laws we put in, let them go, we would look like hypocrites. So instead, they let the pedophiles go. right? And they'll say, "Oh, we are bringing in new legislation." Blah blah. Blah. Of course, until you look at that bill, then you'll find there's some other authoritarian, totalitarian bullshit stripped into there that gives them all kinds of unlimited power, just to do whatever they want with their citizens without any consequences or being addressed in court, like they have tried to sneak into the other bills. So from, the death cult to allowing criminals to overrun the country to just not caring about crime whatsoever and caring more about the criminals than the victims, and then just stealing us blind, barely even making the payments on our credit cards that they're borrowing on. Oh, and let's listen to Liz Truss here talking about Carney.
See this worldview emerge from time to time. So Bailey has recently criticised Brexit. He has promoted net zero. Mark Carney, who is the ultimate version of these people, made lots of money out of the whole climate change agenda, or what Donald Trump would call the climate change scam. He then went on to be Prime Minister of Canada and is busy ruining Canada's economy at the moment. So, these people are not neutral experts. They are people with an agenda who have huge amounts of unelected power. And what is going on in Britain is the public is incredibly frustrated by this because they keep voting for governments that limit immigration, for governments that want
lower
taxes.
Yeah.
And governments aren't delivering it. And you've got to ask, why is it that the public keep voting for lower taxes and lower immigration and politicians keep delivering the opposite? It's not because politicians are stupid. It's because they're part of this system which has a particular worldview. And you're essentially saying you prefer the worldview of these unelected technocrats to the worldview of the British people. I mean, that's what you're saying,
Liz,
JJ.
You sound like you've been listening to the Joe Rogan Experience far too much. That's what you sound like. This is what I'd like to see happen here, okay? I would say, okay, Liz Truss becomes Prime Minister. You then get to put in place the who's in charge of Bank of England, who's in charge of the Treasury, who's going to be heading up the civil service departments. That's what I think that should be happening.
Correct.
But I don't think it should be politicians put into those positions. I think it should be just the people who are best at those jobs.
Yeah, but who's deciding who's best?
Well, the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister should decide.
Then that is a political appointment, fine.
Yeah, but as long as it's not an actual politician.
But what's an actual politician
An
compared
MP.
to?
I don't want an MP running it. Like, we've got Rachel from Accounts now in charge of things.
She's not in charge. This is what I'm trying to say to you, JJ, that I'm no fan of hers whatsoever, but she is not dictating monetary and fiscal policy in this country. It's being run by the Bank of England governor. It's being run by the Office of Budget Responsibility. It's being run by the Treasury officials. And until people really understand what is going on and how the country operates, we're not going to fix it. That's what I'm saying to you.
Canada doesn't run exactly like that because they have their fiscal situation set up differently in the UK. But parliamentarily, they're right about appointments. But see this guy's attitude? Oh, why would I want somebody who represents the people that you elect in a position of power to make decisions? No. What is this bloody mindset? It comes from too much cultural Marxism, right? It's the same mindset that allowed leaders like Hitler and Stalin and Marx and Mussolini to come to power. To want these people, and of course, this isn't a populist movement at this point, right? These people that have put themselves in these positions of so-called fake populism are not even populists themselves because they purchased themselves all the way into that positions by either buying votes, buying their way into the government, and now controlling the media, pushing all the right buttons. And now, of course, now that Mark Carney's up there, well, everything that she said is true. Just look at all the policies that he's put in. Right? These policies are not to help us. They're to help and enrich himself. And I think we might be starting. If I can get to it. No, we are still statements by members. I don't know if we have enough time to cover this, but since you mentioned the Joe Rogan Experience, we might as well listen to some Joe Rogan.
diabolical scam. What they do is they divert the Medicaid funds and turn it into a slush fund for the states that goes well beyond emergency medical care.
So it begins with emergency medical care. Because it is important that people who need healthcare can get it, a flood of people utilizing that service drives up healthcare. So if you care about insurance, illegal immigration is a topic of concern.
Because you mentioned, for example, how much, say, Hillary and Obama have changed their tune from prior speeches where they were hard-nosed about not letting in anyone who's a criminal into the country, having secure borders, all that stuff. So why did they change their tune?
And most people do not realize how this is actually working. Like, wait a minute, you're telling me that people are here illegally, using our banking system, going into debt, using credit cards. What happens to that debt?
And New York and California would be bankrupt without the massive fraudulent federal payments that go to those states to pay for illegals.
Their ability to balance budget is dependent upon illegals getting funding?
The scam level here is so staggering.
But Elon Musk takes it to another level. He's talking about the fraudulent payments that Doge found and how if you were to cut off that spigot, it would affect this entire larger strategy.
California and New York and Illinois lie like crazy and say that these are all legitimate payments. Well, these days that I think they're even admitting that they literally want hundreds of billions of dollars for illegals. But for a while they're trying to deny it.
My understanding is that is what the government shutdown is at a stalemate over. One side wants that healthcare to be accessible for illegal immigrants, and one side is saying that that's a game we cannot play because it is important for the little girl with a mom who can't pay for healthcare to be able to show up to the ER and get that care. And if we're going to play by these terms, that game is going to become impossible.
They start off by saying it's not true. It's a right-wing conspiracy theorist.
Right.
Then it starts. Then it's like, I think the next step is, well, it might be true, and then it's like, okay, it is true.
But here's why it's
good. And then
good.
the final step is, yeah, it's true, and here's why it's good.
Yeah.
And there was a time where that side was denying this completely, and yet now they're making it a negotiation demand.
And it's like, but wait a second, you started off saying it's untrue and it's a right-wing conspiracy theorist. Now you're saying it not only is it true, but it's a good thing, and we must do more of it.
And they would apply.
And that, right there, is the cultural Marxist playbook. Lie, lie, lie. Lie, lie, lie until they all die. Or if they don't die, keep lying until you have so much power and then it's too late to turn things back. Right? Or you convince them that it's too late to turn things back. That's another way to do it. You make things so miserable and you make them forget that things used to be better. And that they can't go back, so now they just have to now live in misery and poverty and accept handouts and normalize handing out free lunches to your children in school because, liberals care for Canadians, right? They don't care that they ruined the economy and made it impossible for parents to actually feed their children. Oh, but they will celebrate being able to feed those children for you. Or they will celebrate being able to provide dental care because people can't afford their own. Or even though they put in a plan that says it provides free dental care, only to find out that 70% of the people who thought they could get it, turns out they get a bill in the mail that it wasn't free all along. Just like his lie about new homeowners, turns out that the entire thing locks out 95% of the people who want to buy properties because most homes aren't under $1.5 million to be purchased. It's insane, right? $1.5 million for a shack in Canada? That's the extent of what our dollars are worth. It's insane. But then again, our money's worth next to nothing. And it's only going to get worse. Now, it's still statements by members. They should be going... Still statements by members. And Tommy Robertson. So Tommy Robertson, if you don't know who he is, founder of the English Defense League back in almost 20 years ago, as a reaction to uncontrolled crime being committed by Muslim migrants. in his country. And because he did that, he was targeted as being racist. Right, so then eventually EDL shut down. He moved on to doing more professional activism. He even joined Rebel News for a while as a reporter, but he was such a target by the government because they knew that they had to quieten this guy down, because if they didn't, his voice is so loud that eventually the truth would come out. So even at that point, so I think Rebel had to say, you know, Tommy, we love you, but you're a shit magnet and we can't afford you. We're not that big. So they let him go, and Tommy continued to do his own reporting, and they still continue to support him as best they can. And like this, when oh, I think we're starting. We are starting. So let us go into the floor video. Sure, we get that up. And get into our first question. And our finance minister answering the first question looks like, oh God. No. Looks like McKinnon answered the first question. This ought to be good. There we go. Finishing up statements by members.
Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable member for Oxford.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is the most expensive in Canadian history. The more they spend, the more things cross. Their so-called generational budget is nothing more than generational debt, mortgaging away our children's future. Massive Liberal deficits feed inflation. Inflation fuels unaffordability. Our seniors can barely buy groceries. Our families are stretched thin, and our workers are falling behind. Yet this Prime Minister, he still wants them to make more sacrifices. Can the Prime Minister tell us what more is left for Canadians to sacrifice?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this morning brings outstanding news of tens of thousands, in fact 69,000 new jobs in Canada. The second straight month of employment growth in this country. What's happening, as the Minister of Natural Resources informed us yesterday, is investors are piling into Canada. They're expressing confidence in our country. The entrepreneurs, the tech sector, young people are getting energized about this positive economic momentum. We're going to keep it going with this budget. I hope the Conservatives support us in it.
The honourable member for Oxford.
This Brookfield budget has the largest deficit in history outside of COVID. The interest payments are topping $55 billion, more than what we spent on healthcare transfers. This means less for doctors, less for nurses, less for our hospitals, but more for bondholders and Liberal insiders. The only thing that's getting healthy under this government are the bankers' profits. They keep getting rich while Canadians foot the price. So can the Prime Minister tell us why he is so hell-bent on making sure his banker buddies get rich while Canadians suffer?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
I think it's worth repeating. The economy has added 67,000 new jobs, Mr. Speaker. 67! Even the Conservatives are happy this morning on a Friday, Mr. Speaker. Look at their face. They are smiling because they're going back home and they have good news. Not only in the budget, Mr. Speaker, there's hundreds of pages of good news, but this morning they can say that the plan of the government will build Canada strong because what, Mr. Speaker? We believe in Canada.
Honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Only a bunch of Liberals would stand up and applaud an unemployment rate of 7% when the United States unemployment rate is 4.2%. This is the most expensive government in Canadian history. In 10 years, they doubled the debt, and now they're going to pile on another $78 billion. Meanwhile, 2.2 million Canadians are going to the food bank. The softwood lumber industry is being devastated. The auto industry is being devastated. Is there a Liberal over there that can stand up and explain how they've spent so much money to accomplish so little?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
67,000. That's how many new jobs were created last month. 20,000 of these jobs were for young Canadians. A clear sign that our plan is working. In Canada, 1 in 5 jobs are related to trade. From small businesses to major exporters, Canadians are driving growth and creating opportunities. In Budget 2025, we have a plan to support our entrepreneurs, our workers, our exporters, as we build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Once again, how do they stand up and applaud an unemployment rate of 7% when the United States unemployment rate is 4.2%? It's actually like we're living in some kind of dystopian universe where they do this. The facts are this. A softwood lumber industry is being hollowed out. 2.2 million Canadians are using the food bank. The auto industry is on its knees, and they stand and applaud a 7.1% unemployment rate. They have spent more money than all governments combined in the history of Canada. How can they applaud when they've spent so much to actually accomplish so little?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Speaker, here is something to applaud about. We created 67,000 new jobs last month. That's right. Mr. Speaker, this is about building an affordable nation for a nation of builders. This budget does just that. We are building affordable housing for young people. We are creating 100,000 new summer jobs. And Mr. Speaker, we are investing in the tech sector. 800,000 workers, fastest growing job sector in the economy, many for young people. I hope the Conservatives, and many of them do, support this budget.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent Akiowenrak. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have presented the most expensive and deficit-ridden budget in Canada's history outside of the pandemic. Nearly $8 billion in deficit. 80 billion. Mr. Speaker, a deficit means spending money we don't have. A deficit is a bill that we send our children and our grandchildren. A deficit is adding fuel to the inflation fire. Why is this Prime Minister spending more and uncontrolledly without focusing on inflation? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud to inform my colleague that over the past month, the Canadian economy added 67,000 new jobs. Because with their help, if we support the 2025 budget, we will unleash the power of the Canadian economy by building big projects like the container for the Port of Quebec, and I hope he'll support the economy so we can build the strongest in the G7. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent Akiowenrak. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, I'm not proud at all of the figure I'm going to cite. 2.2 million Canadians have to use a food bank. That's the Liberal track record. And of these 2 million, 1 out of 3 are children. We're talking about 700,000 children in Canada that have to use food banks to eat. Mr. Speaker, but I love Canada too much to see this. Why is the government continuing to rack up deficits? We're talking about $80 billion. We know deficits are just debts we're sending to our children, our grandchildren. Canadians deserve better than this. The Honourable Secretary of State. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This budget invests in our children. It invests, it requires funds so we can create jobs, so we can renew purchasing power for all Canadians. That's what's important. That's what we're doing. Canadians are hoping for this, and I hope that my colleagues will support this budget, which will give power back to all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Côte-Nord, Kaukowicimach, Netasanan. Mr. Speaker, there would never have been a confidence vote on the budget today if the Liberals had worked in the interests of Quebecers. But here we are, unfortunately. We're here because they refused to negotiate in good faith. Despite their minority status, they rejected Quebec's request for health care and infrastructure, as well as the needs of seniors struggling with the cost of living, or those of young people who would like to become homeowners. Why did they prefer to orchestrate this confidence vote instead of responding to the needs of Quebecers? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, we have great trust that Quebecers have seen in this budget investments in culture. They trust this. They trust in our investments in housing. They trust in our investments in military, to create jobs in Navy and in aerospace. They trust the Liberal Party to protect their language and culture. And Radio-Canada, here in Canada, we're investing in our language and our culture. And in Quebec, and in the Quebec specificity, Quebecers have expressed their trust in this budget. The only question that remains, will the Bloc do the same? The honourable member for Côte-Nord. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers did not vote Conservative, and yet this is a Conservative budget despite its Liberal deficits. Healthcare cuts, mass layoffs, climate capitulation, these are Conservative ideas. The government leader even confirmed this in the House on Wednesday, indicating that this is a budget that Conservative voters can love. And it's working because there's turmoil in the Conservative ranks. They identify with this budget. Why did the Liberals choose to court the Conservatives instead of listening to the demands of Quebecers? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we are very proud to have 44 members from Quebec at the House of Commons, the largest amount. And we are here to support Quebecers. Quebecers asked us for funding for health. We did this with hospitals, emergency rooms, and doctors' clinics. We also had the support from Quebecers for support of French language and culture. We've invested in this. And Quebecers, what do they want? They want jobs. And this is a budget that will create jobs. The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, in the past, the Liberals made budgets to please the NDP, and now they're doing so to please the Conservatives. But they never make budgets to meet the needs of Quebecers. What Quebecers want is a health care system that works. They want to be able to grow old without losing their purchasing power. They want affordable housing. They want young people to be able to buy a home like previous generations did. And that's what we're seeing in Quebec. Why are the Liberals threatening elections instead of meeting the needs of Quebecers? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask my colleague, when he talks about housing, we're massively investing to build housing in Quebec. He talks about health. Quebecers want infrastructure that's of quality, and we have this in the budget. And they talked about jobs. We have a project across Quebec to develop our resources and create opportunities for young people. He talks about purchasing power. There's a tax cut for millions of Canadian, $800 per family less. So what do Quebecers want? They want a responsible and ambitious budget, and that's exactly what we're delivering. Thank you.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister proposed the worst budget deficit in history outside of the COVID period. Every dollar he spends costs Canadians in their taxes and through inflation. More spending by government means more sacrifices for Canadians, with more than 1 in 4 Canadians now living in financially insecure households. Will this Prime Minister at least consider reducing his deficits to levels that we saw under Justin Trudeau?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, what's remarkable about this budget is that it builds for the future, but it helps people today. This is a budget that cuts taxes for 22 million Canadians, saving families up to $800 a year. It makes the National School Food Program permanent, helping over 500,000 kids. It delivers automatic federal tax filing for 5.5 million Canadians. It invests in housing, it invests in infrastructure, and it lowers the barriers to make the Canada Disability Benefit more accessible. If the member opposite truly cares about affordability for families in Canada, he would come on over and vote for this budget.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, I know it's difficult for some members of the Liberal caucus to understand, but parents would actually prefer to be able to afford to buy food themselves for their kids. And they used to be able to before these Liberals took office. Latest numbers today show that more than 1 in 4 people in Canada are living in a financially insecure household. More than 1 in 4. That is the legacy of this party. It wasn't this way before. It doesn't have to be that way again. When will they change course?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, these Conservatives think they know best, but they are actually ignoring the experts. They're ignoring the Coalition for Healthy School Food, who calls this budget a great step forward to support children and youth in Canada. They're ignoring the Heart and Stroke Foundation and the Breakfast Club of Canada that also applaud our commitment to making the National School Food Program permanent. The Conservative Party needs to listen to the experts, listen to Children First Canada about why this program makes a difference and why 500,000 families across the country are going to benefit from it.
The honourable member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
Speaker, speaking of
Speaker, as somebody who spent much of his life in the banking community, let me tell him about the S&P and Moody's ratings, which are AAA, the best in the entire world. The best in the entire world. We have the second lowest debt in the GDP, Mr. Speaker. We're doing just fine.
The honourable member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
Mr. Speaker, ratings are always great until the day they're not. Here's a quick review of the early 90s from Reuters. February 1994, quote, Liberal government brings down what it considers to be a tough budget. It nonetheless has spending rising slightly, an immediate public and market reaction as it did not go nearly far enough. January 1995, quote, a biting editorial in the Wall Street Journal headline, Bankrupt Canada calls Canada an honorary member of the third world. The next month, the Liberal government was forced to make the most vicious cuts to healthcare and social programs in Canadian history. Who over there is willing to take a stand to avoid a repeat?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 includes generational investments to rebuild, rearm and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces, and it starts with our people. This budget includes a $2 billion historic pay and benefits package, which will impact close to 100,000 forces and their families. Untrained sailors, privates and aviators are receiving a 20% pay raise. That's what's in our budget. That's what's at stake. All members of the House should come together to support our forces as they help build and keep Canada strong.
Honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, while Canadians are being forced to choose between heating and eating, this government has chosen to increase our national debt by $80 billion. Can this Prime Minister please explain how driving up the debt and increasing the cost of living is going to help the single mom skipping meals, the senior afraid to open their hydro bill, or the young family priced out of their new home? Or is this just continued economic theater from a government that's completely lost touch with reality?
Yes. Well, Secretary of State for Seniors.
They are fighting for youth, but they plan to vote against a national school food program.
What?
They say they are fighting for families, but they plan to vote against a middle income tax cut.
Wow.
They say they are fighting for workers, but they plan to vote against a $75 million apprenticeship training fund. They say they are fighting for our borders, but they plan to vote against a much needed pay raise for our service members in our armed forces, including in my riding at CFB Esquimalt. Canadians want to know who these Conservatives are fighting for, because it certainly is not Canadians.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal inflationary deficits, working Canadians have never had it so tough. People lined up at food banks and parents putting beef back on the grocery store shelf were desperate for something in the budget to bring prices down. Did the Prime Minister scrap hidden taxes on food? No. Did he scrap the 17-cent fuel standards tax? No. The Prime Minister heard the cries of working Canadians, and what did he do? He scrapped the luxury tax on private jets and yachts. That's right, the only measure in this budget to make things cheaper will only apply to boats and airplanes. Can the Prime Minister tell us how many Canadians lined up at food banks will benefit from the private jet tax cut?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
What Canadians want is a government that will invest in their futures and invest in their possibility, and that's exactly what we've been doing, Mr. Speaker. 67,000 new jobs added this month, Mr. Speaker, 2 months in a row where we're seeing unemployment go down. And what's great about this, Mr. Speaker, is youth youth unemployment is going down. So the investments we're making are working. This is a budget for young people, for seniors, for families. They're going to vote against things like dental care. They're going to vote against things like child care. That's what families need, and that's exactly what this budget delivers.
Member for Regina Capel.
They really wanted to give workers a break. They'd scrap the industrial carbon tax that their American competitors don't have to pay. Now we all know who this budget really was for. It was a Brookfield boardroom budget. After all, the billions in extra debt means bankers and bondholders get big interest payments. And now when those board members go out to buy a luxury private jet, they get a big tax break. A Gulfstream G600 is currently listed for $63 million. Can the Prime Minister tell us how much a Brookfield executive will save with the private jet tax cut and how much more Canadians will have to pay when food prices go up?
Sorry, folks. There's a lot of choppiness going on here. I don't know why. Yesterday the stream was fine. I'm having some encoder issues. That's why it's so choppy. So I'm just going to do a little. I've tried to fix the stream here for a sec, and it just keeps getting worse. And I don't know what's going on. I've tried to shut down as many things that are running on the computer as possible, and I'm just going to shut down some more. Make sure that we reduce the CPU rate. I don't know why the CPU is so high. Maybe it's just because of all the stuff I was saying, and now somebody's invading my computer. I do not know. Let me close these down here. Just a few extra sites on the Chrome browser. All right. Let's see if that does it any better. It doesn't look much better. Let's go back to our scene.
I'm sorry, pardon.
Sorry, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Housing and Infrastructure. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Canadians do not live in a pretend world. They know there is no tax on food. They know which party always vote against affordability, against dental care, pharmacare, child care, basically anything with the word care in it. But most importantly, Canadians know that our government is there for them with a budget that will protect jobs in critical sectors like auto, steel, aluminum, lumber, build affordable housing and the infrastructures our communities need all across Canada, empower, catalyze our economy. So if you're really there for Canadians, you'll vote for the budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Again, I would remind the member to go through the chair. I can't vote unless it's a tie.
The Honourable Member for Gaspésie, Les Îles-de-la-Madeleine, Lestigouche. Mr. Speaker, yesterday a report on Radio Canada revealed lobster smuggling in New Brunswick. It's troubling for people in this region and for everyone in the Maritimes. But the problem is even all more serious because in recent weeks we have heard that at Fisheries Committee that there's political interference in the works of fisheries officers to combat illegal fishing, and even experienced officers saying they're being hamstrung by the Department of Fisheries. How come senior officials in the department are intervening to prevent the law from being enforced? The Honourable Minister.
Unauthorized fishing is unacceptable, full stop. Fisheries officers have many tools that they use in the management of unauthorized fishing, from education to charges to fines. And often their work happens in remote areas and at times of the day when people are not aware of the work that they're doing. And I want to thank the fisheries officers for their outstanding work and keeping our fisheries safe and peaceful. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Gaspésie, Les Îles-de-la-Madeleine, Lestigouche. Mr. Speaker, illegal lobster fishing is endangering the species, and that's what worries fishers most. They want to protect this resource so their children and grandchildren can also fish. But we can take action against illegal fishing. They just have to enforce the law. That's the only thing that the fishing industry is asking for at committee. They want the officers to be able to do their job without political interference or reprisals. My question is simple, so the answer must be as well. Will this government ensure that its fisheries officers enforce the law? The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
I assure my colleague that the work is happening, and he needs to just look at what's happened in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and other parts of the country. The fisheries officers are on the water. We support their work. They are making a difference, and we accept nothing but authorized fishing. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Katiskomik-Tamiskwata. Mr. Speaker, this government is the most expensive in Canada's history. Every dollar spent by the PM comes directly out of Canadians' pockets. The more he spends, the more everything costs. In my riding, producers are seeing their costs skyrocket because of the industrial carbon tax. Everything is going up, machinery, transportation, and it costs more to produce, and food prices go up at the grocery stores. While this PM spends recklessly, families continue to struggle to put food on the table. Why does this government refuse to admit that its industrial carbon tax is a tax on food that we have to pay? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Culture. Mr. Speaker, clearly the carbon tax on industry is important to keep so we can protect our climate. Nevertheless, the cost of living is our priority, and we are going to work on this. This is a responsible budget to do so, and when will the opposition understand that we have to keep these factors for Canadians, and they should be supporting the budget? The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Sud. Mr. Speaker, it's clear this minister does not understand the reality on the ground because, according to a Nanos poll, 1 in 5 Canadians have skipped paying a bill just to put food on the table. Frankly, this is unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, can this Prime Minister explain to my constituents and theirs why he's stubbornly sticking to this industrial carbon tax while families have to choose between heating their homes and filling their fridges? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Not only do we know that Quebecers support this budget, we know why. Because we're going to deliver for them. Good jobs in my riding, this riding, will ensure that people who work at Alstom will have good jobs, will be able to buy groceries, and will be able to meet the needs of their families. Quebecers also want a good healthcare system. The federal government has continued to increase health. Well, in past budgets, they've increased health transfers, and we're keeping them the same in this one. And we're supporting the construction of hospitals. The Quebec government asked for this, and we delivered for them, and we're there for Quebec.
Honourable Member for Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals promised to spend less but have introduced the largest budget deficit in history outside of COVID. This at a time when 1 in 5 Canadians say they've skipped paying a bill to afford groceries this past year. Liberals had a chance to lower food prices. Instead, they increased the industrial carbon tax on our farms, driving up the cost of fertilizer and farm equipment. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax and making food more expensive?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, if that member should take next week and go and meet with her local chapters of the building trades in her riding, I encourage every member to take next week to meet with the locals to understand why they are supporting this budget. From coast to coast to coast, workers are supporting our plan. The Canadian building trades, the Alberta building trades, the IBEW, the carpenters, on and on. They are endorsing the investments made in this budget, Mr. Speaker. The SEIU said it best. Promises made, promises kept. Mr. Speaker, they're supporting the investments because we're building good jobs, good union jobs.
The Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
After 10 years of Liberal government, young Canadians are struggling. They're struggling to afford homes in one of the least affordable housing markets in the world. They're struggling to find jobs in an economy that is increasingly slowing down. And they're struggling just to afford food after some of the highest food inflation in more than 30 years. This budget was an opportunity to do right by the next generation. Instead, the Liberals announced over $300 billion in new debt that will be left to these exact same young Canadians to pay for. How is that ethical? How is that fair? How is that remotely fiscally responsible?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, one number, 67,000 jobs created. And how are we supporting them? We are supporting them by investing in their health. And through Budget 2025, we're investing $5 billion to renew hospitals and healthcare centers, $97 million to recognize skilled professionals faster, and new supports for personal support workers. And Mr. Speaker, don't just take it from me, take it from CMA. They're saying this is a right step in the right direction to support the health of our nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
I have a simple question for the Liberal government. Over the past 10 years, they have doubled Canada's national debt. In that same time, unsurprisingly, they have also doubled the amount of taxpayers' money that they waste paying interest on that debt. In fact, today we now spend $55 billion a year just on interest payments. That's more than we collect in the GST. That's more than we spend on healthcare. And now they want to borrow another $320 billion. Does this government really think that spending $55 billion not on healthcare, not on roads, but on interest is a good use of taxpayer money, yes or no?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We are building Canada strong, and that includes the spaces and places that Canadians go to play, to practice, and to exercise, Mr. Speaker. A healthy lifestyle is preventative medicine, and we are building the facilities necessary right across this country. New rinks, new pools, new field houses, so the next generation of Canadians can have better physical literacy, a healthier lifestyle, and they can connect with their communities in those important places, Mr. Speaker. Why won't the Conservatives join us, build Canada strong, and make sure that every community has access to those facilities, that infrastructure that keeps us healthy and our communities connected?
The Honourable Member for Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, in my riding, the Bay of Quinte, so many of my neighbours are friends of veterans, family members of veterans, or veterans themselves. It's a privilege then and an honour to be here and representing them. The generational budget introduced by the Prime Minister and Finance Minister earlier this week will be deeply impactful to communities across Canada and to all Canadians, including those like mine that are home to so many veterans and active military members and their families. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs offer his comments on Budget 2025?
Okay, before this dickhead talks, this is my member of Parliament right here. We somehow went Liberal from the prior Conservative for this dude. This dude is useless. He's like a piece of gum stuck on my bottom of my shoe. Let's hear what these clowns have to say, how they've abandoned veterans yet again. Well, we had like 6 ministers of Veterans Affairs so far, and you've completely abandoned us. So you can all go fuck yourselves.
To the Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from the Bay of Quinte for that question. I also want to acknowledge retired Lieutenant Colonel Skip Simpson from the member's office, both for his service to our country and also for his service to the constituents in the Bay of Quinte. Budget 2025 indeed does represent a generational investment in communities across Canada. It also includes $185 million to streamline services for veterans and their families. I call on all members of the House to join me in acknowledging the service and sacrifice of all of Canada's veterans.
I guess it's pretty easy to streamline services you barely provide. Right? Fucking clowns.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Speaker,
top executives at the Prime Minister's company, Brookfield, are defying an order of this House to testify at committee about his use of offshore tax havens. This is tantamount to contempt of Parliament. So, will the Prime Minister pick up the phone and tell his pals at Brookfield to comply with the House order, or is he complicit in the cover-up?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the news today was that we created 67,000 jobs. 67, Mr. Speaker. It's great news. We are growing the economy, and the budget 2025, is making historic investments that are going to keep this economy moving for generations to come. Mr. Speaker, why don't the Conservatives stand up and support this investment budget?
Honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, evidently he is complicit, because here are the facts. The Prime Minister was chair of the company that is Canada's biggest tax dodger. Not only that, he set up investment funds in Bermuda and the Cayman Islands in which he stands to make millions. The Prime Minister has a responsibility to come clean, and to come clean today. How much cash does he have stashed in offshore tax havens?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has a responsibility to help build this country and to create jobs, and we created 67,000 jobs in the last month alone. We have a plan in Budget 2025 to build this country up by building major projects, including in that member's riding and province. We have investments to help support young people in this country, to build up apprentices, to be able to drive this country forward. Mr. Speaker, that is what we are focused on this side of this House, supporting Canadians, creating good jobs, and helping drive this country forward, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're going to keep doing.
Honourable member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
This government is the most expensive in Canadian history. Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians. The more they spend, the more things cost, like housing. The Ontario Home Builders Association said they are deeply disappointed with the Liberal budget and that it fails to unlock supply and restore affordability. The government's inaction on housing has put 40,000 jobs at risk in Ontario, and the impact of these losses on the Ontario economy could be $5.3 billion. How can the Liberal budget cost so much but yet deliver so little to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, Oscar Wilde described a cynic as someone who knows the cost of everything but the value of nothing. On this side of the House, we value investments in healthcare. We value investments in jobs. We value investments in the Canadian Armed Forces, and we value investments in housing. This is irony and hypocrisy on full display when the member stands up advocating for more money for housing before he votes against a budget that has record investments in housing. On this side of the House, we're going to listen to Canadians, make the investments and improve their quality of life. I wish for once the Conservatives could do the same.
Honourable member for Skeena Bulkley Valley.
Premier Eby says the court decided not to provide Richmond homeowners with notice of the Cowichan court litigation, but the Cowichan lawyer said the judge in the case said the parties were free to provide notice of this litigation to private landowners years ago. This includes Canada as represented by the Attorney General. Canada has been and still is missing in action. Why is the Prime Minister being so quiet at a time when people are anxious about their homes and looking for answers?
Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations. Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada disagrees with the BC Supreme Court's ruling and appealed it on September 8th. Further legal clarity is required to address the decision, particularly relating to private property rights. British Columbia, the City of Richmond, Musqueam Indian Band, and Tsawwassen First Nation have also appealed. We will continue to work collaboratively with all parties to uphold the principles of reconciliation, transparency, and legal responsibility to all parties. We remain available for dialogue with the other parties to the litigation throughout this process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Skeena Bulkley Valley.
And in the meantime, there's chaos and panic in BC. Everybody's complaining, and everybody's blaming each other. The public is blaming Richmond Council. Premier Eby is blaming the court. And this government continues to stay quiet. That was only the second time I've heard this government say anything about that. The first one was made by a staffer. It's always been the Crown's duty to deal with rights and title. That's clear in the 2004 court case, the Haida court case. Does the Prime Minister have any statements to make to Canadian citizens regarding the Cowichan ruling?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We did make an announcement in September on this, and we remain available to work with all parties to address this matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Richmond Centre Marpole.
Mr. Speaker, homeowners in Richmond are sounding the alarm. The Cowichan court ruling undermines the principle of private property ownership, and many fear their homes and business are at risk. The Liberal government saw this coming and did nothing. No explanation, no assurance, no leadership, and they still remain silent. Richmond's left in the dark. Families are anxious, investors are pulling back, and confidence in our communities is crumbling. Why won't this Liberal government stand up to defend property rights in Richmond and soon across Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I just said to the other member, Canada has disagreed with the BC Supreme Court's ruling and appealed it on September 8th. We remain available for dialogue with the other parties to the litigation throughout this process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bowmanville, Oshawa North.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals have banned the vast majority of nicotine pouches for sale in Canada, despite the fact that many Canadians use these products to help quit smoking. Canadians just want to go to the corner store, the gas station, wherever cigarettes are sold, and choose an alternative product. Even the Neighbourhood Pharmacy Association of Canada agrees. So when will these Liberals do the right thing? When will these Liberals free the Zin?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, our government remains firmly committed to reducing smoking rates, especially among youth. While nicotine pouches may have a role in adults who are trying to quit smoking, evidence shows they're not risk-free. These products contain nicotine, which is addictive and can harm the developing brain. That's why clear guidelines are in place to ensure they're used appropriately and not marketed or flavored in ways that attract youth. Our priority is to protect the health of Canadians and especially our next generation, Mr. Speaker.
For Bowmanville, Oshawa North.
The very same government that likes to push so-called safe supply drugs into our communities now wants to point out nicotine as a problem for adult usage. Mr. Speaker, Health Canada set a target for 2035. They would reduce the number of Canadians smoking to less than 5%. This government should have no excuses for making alternatives to cigarettes available wherever cigarettes are sold, corner stores, gas stations, wherever. The question remains, when will the Liberals do the right thing? When will they free the Zin?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of young people, the first new medical school in the GTA in over 100 years in Brampton, Mr. Speaker. It's happening with a $25 million investment in Budget 2025. This government is stepping up to support the new TMU Medical School to train the next generation of doctors in Brampton. This is how we're empowering young Canadians across the country, Mr. Speaker. This is how we build Brampton and Canada strong.
Nice. The Honourable Member for Red Deer.
Mr. Speaker, under this Liberal government, it's easier for Canadians to continue smoking than quit. Since former Liberal Health Minister Mark Harlan launched his personal crusade against cigarette alternatives, everything we've heard from this government is smoke and mirrors. While nicotine pouches are banned from pharmacies, cigarettes can be bought anywhere. It makes no sense. So instead of blowing more smoke, will the minister finally give Canadians a real chance to quit and free the Zin?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Mr. Speaker, addiction is a serious issue, and these Conservatives are making it blatantly political, which is wrong, Mr. Speaker. Look, nicotine, regardless of where people can access it, causes addiction to nicotine. These Conservatives should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, Mr. Speaker. We have produced good numbers on nicotine and cigarette reduction.
These hypocrites. They are literally flooding Canada with drugs through harm reduction to get people hooked on drugs. Literally getting adults hooked on drugs across Canada. And you're saying, oh, we're gonna get rid of it. My God, is liberalism a gateway drug to retardedness, to stupidity, to totalitarianism, to fascism, to cognitive dissonance, to perpetual cultural Marxist ideological insanity?
Mr. Speaker, we continue to be there to improve the health of Canadians and make sure that these are available at the appropriate time and never for children. Never for children.
The Honourable The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Mr. Speaker, as a proud Acadian and a representative of Madawaska-Restigouche.
Fridays are usually quiet. This must be a special day today. The Honourable Member,
The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a proud Acadian representing Madawaska-Restigouche in this House, I care deeply about the vitality of Francophone communities. Between 2020 and 2024, there was a strong increase in the number of Francophone permanent residents admitted outside Quebec. To ensure the vitality of our communities, this trend must continue. As we celebrate National Francophone Immigration Week, I would like to ask the Minister to explain how the new immigration levels plan will help support the demographic growth of Francophone communities across Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. I would like to thank my colleague for his dedication. In 2023 and in 2024, we surpassed our target for French-speaking permanent residents outside Quebec. Today, as we stabilize overall permanent resident numbers, we are projecting to take in over 30,000 Francophones per year over the next 3 years, while constantly increasing our annual target for Francophone immigration. That is how we will reach our target for 12% Francophone immigration, and how we will strengthen communities everywhere.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, non-citizen Abraham Daniel Abraham was convicted for criminally abusing his dog Simba. Abraham repeatedly punched and kicked Simba, tied him to a pole so high his front legs dangled off the ground. Simba couldn't lie down or sit and was left crying and yelping. Yet Abraham remains in Canada with no deportation guarantee. That's disgusting. Why hasn't the immigration minister strengthened the Immigration Refugee Protection Act to make sure non-citizens convicted of serious crimes like Simba's abusers are swiftly deported?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has a robust system of removals and inadmissibility that enables us to take action, Mr. Speaker. I will commit to the member opposite to look into it and get back to her, but what the circumstances behind the incident that she refers to is abhorrent, and I condemn it wholeheartedly, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
The problem is, Mr. Speaker, we have an immigration minister that's so weak, she won't even stand up and answer questions to this. I asked about the Immigration Refugee Protection Act. She won't stand up. So I'll ask again. That case is so disgusting. We've had so many cases like this. Serious criminals, non-citizens who need to be deported. Will she stand up and commit to strengthening the Immigration Refugee Protection Act to make sure that these non-citizens who are convicted of serious crimes are actually deported?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Citizenship, Refugees, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we are delivering for Canadians every day. This government's highest priority is the safety and security of Canadians. Let me be clear, a foreign national who's been convicted of a crime is inadmissible to Canada. We will work with the IRB, we work with CBSA, we work with CSIS, we work with the RCMP to ensure that we deport anyone that needs to be deported. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Except for a Pakistani national who was convicted of raping his niece, who came into Canada while being on the UK sex offender list, or Simba's abuser here. This government doesn't take this seriously. In fact, it's so bad, Mr. Speaker, that this week the Liberals admitted that they didn't even know how many criminals, convicted criminals, they gave citizenship to.
Wow.
Seriously, they put that in an order paper question. So I'll give her one more opportunity here. How many citizenships did the minister issue to criminals in Canada? Because her department couldn't answer this week.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. Foreign nationals who are convicted of a crime are inadmissible to Canada. On this side of the House, we take the safety and security of all Canadians very seriously, and we act. We work with our RCMP and our policing partners in CBSA to ensure that we act in accordance with the law and the IRPA regulation and act. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Mr. Speaker, while many Canadians are looking at the $78 billion deficit number in this budget, many others are, well, concerned about that deficit, wondering about our children and our grandchildren and the growing ecological deficit from lack of action on climate, lack of action to protect nature. We look at this budget and want to weep. Those of us who are grandparents and seniors right across this country, young people, want to know, will this government step up and tackle the generational ecological deficit?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
For a very important question and our advocacy, Mr. Speaker. In the throne speech, we said we must fight climate change, and our new climate competitiveness strategy includes measures to reduce emissions, including by strengthening the industrial carbon pricing, incentivizing investments to reduce carbon, and mobilizing private capital. We're also creating a new youth climate corps, Mr. Speaker, to empower young people in the fight against climate change. We are committed to predicting nature by halting and reversing nature and biodiversity loss through reinforced efforts to conserve 30%.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Have introduced the most costly and largest budget deficit in history outside of COVID. It'll drive up the cost of food, housing, and everything else that Canadians buy. In Nanaimo Ladysmith, food bank use is up and donations are down, in part because those who formerly supported these services now increasingly need to use them to make ends meet. Liberals had the chance to lower food costs for Canadians by scrapping the industrial carbon tax, but they increased it instead, driving up the cost of everything needed to grow our food. Why is this Prime Minister making food more expensive?
Honourable Minister for Crown and Indigenous Relations.
Jobs, housing, and infrastructure. That's what this budget has, including through our investment and commitment to accelerating the additions to reserve process. In October, I was in Nanaimo celebrating with the Nanaimo First Nation the addition of 195 acres. With this, the First Nation is looking to build a 2.3 mixed-use development. 2.3 billion, sorry, Mr. Speaker. That's great housing for youth and for everyone on reserve. That's great jobs during construction and after on reserve. We look forward to working with First Nations to accelerate more additions to reserve. We hope all parties will support this and the budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, there is a lot wrong with this Liberal budget, but the climate plan has become a sinister farce at a time when our shared house is burning down. No more emission reductions targets for 2030. No more cap for the oil and gas sector. The climate strategy amounts to a few tax credits for critical minerals and carbon capture. So, subsidies for mining and oil companies. How can the Liberals call this a generational budget when it ignores the fate of future generations? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Let us be clear, Mr. Speaker. Our government will continue to fight climate change. We will do this through a whole-of-government effort. In our budget, we strengthen the industrial carbon pricing and methane regulations. We will put in place clean fuel regulations. And if the member wants to talk about tax credits, yes, we will offer tax credits for clean electricity, because that is good for all Canadians, including Quebecers.
Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, friendship centres are lifelines for Indigenous people in urban communities, providing food, housing, safety, culture, and belonging. The urban Indigenous population is growing rapidly, and friendship centres are already stretched past the breaking point. Their core funding runs out in March. Budget 2025 offered nothing. Without stable, permanent funding, programs will be cut and doors will close. This is not reconciliation. It is abandonment. When will this government commit to renewing this critical funding to support Indigenous peoples with long-term, secure, and stable funding?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, we put Indigenous children, families, and essential services first. This new government is innovating to better serve Canadians by improving efficiencies and coordinating across all departments. But the federal government has a distinct duty to Indigenous people and a key opportunity to strengthen a renewed, respectful relationship. That's why the priority in Budget 2025 is to protect critical services like water, housing, and infrastructure in community, and to ensure that changes made strengthen service delivery.
Here, here.
This concludes question period for today.
Alors, yes, a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I am asking for unanimous consent to redo my SO 31 due to an
Does the honourable does the House give unanimous consent for the member to redo? Yes. Okay. The member may redo his statement.
Mr. Speaker, this week the Liberal government released its 10th budget, the costliest deficit outside of COVID, and double what the Prime Minister's predecessor left behind. The Prime Minister broke every promise that he made. He promised to keep the deficit at $62 billion, a level the parliamentary budget officer had already called unsustainable, yet it has now ballooned to nearly $80 billion. He said it would lower the debt to GDP ratio, but both debt and inflation are rising. He promised to spend less, but added $90 billion more. That is $5,400 in extra inflationary spending per household. Families in London are paying the price. Groceries, gas, rent, and mortgages keep climbing while paychecks fall further behind. Canadians already spend more on debt interest than on health care. The budget at this time is simply irresponsible. Mr. Speaker, Conservatives stand for an affordable budget and an affordable life. Londoners deserve hope, homes, and a future they can afford.
Thank you.
All right, that's the end of question period for today. Again, big apologies for the choppiness. I'm gonna have to go back in here this weekend and figure out what the hell is going on. It's every day is a new day with this streaming software. It works fine one day, next day something else goes wrong with it. That's what I get for using free software. But hey, you can help me out by starting to increase our subscribers and followership, and eventually we'll start actually generating enough money to buy some decent equipment like mics and crap. But in the meantime, I gonna have to uniform foxtrot this issue. So as we go out, our outro for today will be an easy, no-need bread recipe from my gardening channel. It's a short video. It's about 14 minutes. It's very easy to make your own bread. You just mix these 4 ingredients, let it sit overnight, stick it inside the oven, and the next day you're done. You don't even need to knead it. Knead it, as in, kneading the bread. So thanks out again for coming out. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you for helping out this veteran, and thank you for those who commented. Again, please leave some comments if you're watching this video afterwards on the stream. We will see you next week. No, not next week. It's the week after, because our members of parliament are back in their ridings. So there will be some standalone videos, and who knows, maybe some other live streams. If I can figure out this bloody choppiness issue. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh, jeez, I just realized I need to fix this. There we go. And... oh, and fade. Later. to Occam's Razor Gardening, Cooking, and Canning. This is my every other day bread baking recipe. And if you're like me, you probably don't like the knead. That is, knead your bread. Kneading bread is something that can get painful as you get older and you get arthritis in your hands. So of course, any recipe that calls for no kneading, I love that recipe. And this is such an easy bread recipe. Very, very easy. So, first thing you're gonna need is get yourself a bowl that's big enough to hold some bread that you wanna make, and grease it up. I always grease mine up with butter. You can use whatever you want. You can use lard, it's up to you. Of course, you don't really need to grease up the bowl. You can still scrape your bread out. It's just easier if you do it. And I use butter because I like butter, and butter tastes wonderful. Next, what you're gonna wanna need is some yeast. I've heard tell that you can just substitute this for baking soda if you'd rather. Now, you'll only need about 3 grams. Ooh, too much. There we go, 3 grams. Next, you're going to need 9 grams of sugar. So when you do this by weight, you just can't get anything wrong. Grams. Next, I'm going to need 360 grams of flour. Actually, let's do the water. Zero the scale. Too much. All right, 300 grams. Next, we want 360 grams of flour. Zero the scale. 360 grams of flour. Now, this is your bread whisk. This is a fantastic invention. You'll see how quickly this works whenever you make your bread. Now, I want to mix my flour and my salt. And for this, I just use my little find that I had at the used furniture place, where the volunteers work, where all the used furniture and used kitchen appliances are. And the used clothing, and the used art. I'd say about maybe a good third of my kitchen implements I found secondhand. Like this thing here. You just can't get anything like this. Now mind you, of course, I'm not sifting the flour because there's anything bad in it. I'm just using it to help mix up everything. Helps air out the flour a little bit. And of course, the flour that I use while I make my bread and I sift it back through this, I use it for making bread, or I use it for making gravy, or I use it for coating meat when I'm going to fry it. All right, so now we've mixed all our flour, the yeast, and the salt, and you will see how quickly this works. Look at that. Now mind you, I'm doing this under the camera, not really at a good angle. But this water and this amount of flour will absorb it all. And even if you have a little bit of powdered flour left over in your bowl after, you don't have to worry about it. because it'll just get absorbed into this flour, meat, bread, butter. No, into this bread, future bread. Now this will clean really easy. I suggest you clean it as soon as you're finished making your bread. Right, finish off by putting a wet tea towel over top. There we go. Now, let it sit for 18 to 24 hours. And we'll pick it up from there. It's the next day, and we are ready to make our bread. Let's have a look at how the bread raised. Oh, look at this. Nice little mess here. Now it all just did rather well. Okay. So, since I recovered a lot of the flour that I use, I also use this flour all the time. Put it back to my sifter. And then I need to put some flour on my board for my bread. Now you want to preheat your oven at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. For your large ovens, they say to preheat for about half an hour. I have a small little pressure oven, Wolfgang Puck pressure oven my mother gave me. And what I do is I use that, and of course I don't need to preheat it for as long because it's a small unit. But what you want to preheat is your Dutch oven, as this is Dutch oven bread. So the Dutch oven is in the oven, getting preheated. Oh yeah, all right. Let's just pour this mess right on here. All right, I'm going to throw a little flour on top. Stretch it out. Okay, I want to fold the bread in on itself. And then I like to use parchment paper. I get about 3 or 4 uses out of each one when I make the bread. Take my bread, just dump it right into the paper. Next, you want to lame your bread. You don't need a fancy lame tool. It just so happened that when I bought my bread whisk, it came with a scraper and a lame tool. And I love this lame tool. Now they say you must at least score it once. Well, I like to score it several times. You can use a sharp knife. Remember that this is very, very sticky. There we go. Okay. Put this to the side. And our Dutch oven is ready. Now I have a little grill on the inside that I use to help elevate the bread. You don't have to use that. If you don't, I found that the bread gets a bit of a hard crust on the bottom. That's all right. It's bread. Okay, just like that. So now you want to break your bread for 21 minutes. Well, 20 minutes. They said to bake it for 20 minutes and then take the lid off and bake it for another 10 minutes. Now you will have to get used to your own oven. And I found that with mine, with the recipe that I make, if I do 21 minutes with the lid on and 12 minutes with the lid off, I get it just perfect. So we'll be back once the bread comes out of the oven. What I also like to do at the 12-minute mark, or if you're just making it for the first time, should be your 10-minute mark when you remove the lid, is I like to do something else. I just like to slap a little butter on the bread. Oh yeah, okay, let's put that back in. All right, the bread is ready. There we go. So a nice ridged bottom. Get another use out of this. Voila. Occam's razors. Overnight bread, no kneading, very easy to make. And after it's done, I put it out in a rack, let it cool off. You don't want to store it in a plastic bag right away because it'll get all humid and then your bread will mold. If you need to put it in a bag, put it in a paper bag. But once it's cooled, I found that this oven to tableware works wonderfully for keeping my bread nice and soft and not dry. Especially for this bread. You've seen how much water is in it when you make it, and the moisture in the bread is very prevalent when you're eating it. It's absolutely delicious. You can add some other things to it. You can use different types of flour. I've used bread-specific flour and just all-purpose flour, and you know what? I didn't really find much of a difference at all, except in the price for the flour. All right, this has been Occam's Razors bread.